Welcome to Conversation with Haych. We have another amazing guest, an accredited cognitive behavior psychotherapist, CBT. She's also a mental health speaker and advocate. Not only that, she's been featured on New J UK's YouTube channel a couple of times, talking about anxiety, thoughts and beliefs, as well as race, health, and social justice. Not only that, she's been featured on podcasts. You might have seen her on, a few events and those types of things. She's also the creator of Twin Without Twin Instagram. It is the amazing, some of you know her as Chanelle_Rose, but her name is Chanelle Dennis. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. That was such an introduction. I feel like, wow. I feel honoured.
I tried to do the research. So
definitely did your research.
Thank you. So for those who don't know who you are, who is Chanelle Dennis?
Wow. Well, as you can see, I am a Black woman. But I think when people ask me who I am, they always want to know like what I do. Yeah. But that's not necessarily who I am. So I am a believer in God. I am passionate about lots of different things. I'm someone who loves fun and seeking adventures and trying different things. I am compassionate. I am empathetic. I have like a desire to kind of really try and fulfill everything that I was put on this world to do. And that has then come out in like some of the roles and jobs that I have. So like you said, I'm an accredited cognitive behavioral psychotherapist, and I've been doing that for several years now, quite a long time. I'm also a trainee doctor in clinical psychology. So that's what I'm currently doing mainly at the moment. But I also do other things, like I'm a trustee, I sit on a board. I volunteer in the women's program at my church. I kind of have lots of different hats.
Hats. That's what it sounds like. Sounds like you got your hands in different things, lots of different hats. That's amazing. And it's good that you kind of talk about who you are away from what people first see you as, which is kind of like CBT, which is mental health speaker and advocate. You talked about your personality. So tell me a bit about early family life and what you said you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were younger.
So I was thinking about this, and I don't really know. There's nothing that stands out to me that I said, do you know what, when I grow up, I want to be a psychotherapist. I don't think I ever said that really, especially when I was younger. I might have had those things that like, I want to be a hairdresser or I don't know, I want to be a writer. I used to love reading as a kid. So like my head was always in a book, especially after losing my sister. So I used to think that maybe that would be a career, but I didn't really know how to make a career out of that. Like I love reading, but I didn't quite want to be an editor because I like reading, but English isn't necessarily my strong point. So I was like, I can't do that. And like when I was thinking about my A-levels, I was still kind of split. I was thinking maybe like media, kind of English language world. And I used to like blog. I tried my hand at YouTubing, didn't work out for me. Like I tried different things and then just kind of went into psychology. And like fell in love with that and thought, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. But what I thought I wanted to be when I was younger and what I'm doing now, I wouldn't necessarily say
they're linked.
Yeah.
I got you. So would you say is one thing you learned through your family life that you still carry with you today, and why?
Well, I'm from a massive, massive family. I'm one of 13.
You say 13? 1 and 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm 1 in 3. My mom is mother to 7 of those 13 children, and I'm like number 5 out of 13.
Yeah.
So me and my sister, we were like the first girls to enter the family. So like, and we were twins. So growing up, we were very spoiled, I would say. And family life was busy, obviously being one of 5 when I was first born, and for a long time, it was just busy. Like, it's very male dominated. I've got lots of brothers, lots of uncles. It was fun, but also challenging. Like we lived in inner city Birmingham, grew up in Newtown. So it came with its challenges, but it was, a good family life as well at the same time. My mum and dad weren't always together throughout all of that growing up. But one thing that I would say that family life has taught me is, I was thinking about loyalty. Like, I think my family, they're so loyal to each other, and we kind of got each other's back through anything, like through anything. So like one call away kind of thing. And I think that's kind of true of like my immediate family and like my extended family as well. But almost to like the extent where it's not good, like it's kind of like blinded loyalty sometimes. But yeah, I think that's one thing that I've definitely taken from like my childhood, and something that I think I am in my current relationship with people, whether that's family or friends or whatever. I think I'm quite a loyal person, and I will be there for you even when I think you might be wrong in that situation.
Even when you're just like,
yeah,
you gotta think about that one.
Yeah. And I will call you out on it. I'll call you out on it, but I'm still going to be there for you at the same time. Yeah, I think loyalty is probably the thing that I take from childhood.
And that's great, because considering where we're at, especially in this kind of time and the social media age and all these types of things, and it's good, especially when you kind of like my age, to have loyal friends who have been with you for a long period of time, and you can just say, yo, I'm loyal to you, listen, I'll call you out and we'll have a conversation. I have to tell you when you're wrong, you know, but don't get it twisted, that's not a question on my loyalty or anything like that, which is amazing. Is there anything you would change about, you know, early life, if you could?
Yeah.
Just give me one thing.
One thing.
Or try and give me one thing.
Well, do you know what? To be honest, I don't really know if I could say like one thing that I would definitely change. I think I think everyone really could look back and think, you know, if I could change this or that from my past, then I would. And probably the biggest thing for me is like the loss of my sister, if anything. But things like that are outside of my control, like were outside of my control. So to think about changing something that was in my control, hardly, like there is nothing really that I could change. And I think a lot of my experiences, although difficult, have really shaped me into like the person that I am today. So to change something would be to change me, and I'm kind of happy with the way that I am.
You're just like, yeah, I'm good as yeah.
So I think it's really difficult to think about changing something, although I could definitely probably list some things and like, yeah, I'll change that, I'll change this, I'll change that. But I think those experiences kind of are really important to who you become in the future at the same time.
They've made you who you are today, essentially. So if you used to change that that might shift something, which is essentially, if you're happy with where you're at and happy with yourself, you wouldn't really want to shift those things, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I mean, some things I would definitely change, like going back to what I just said about, you know, my sister, if that was something that I could have controlled or changed, by all means, I would have done that. But like, there's nothing like that stands out that I think, yeah, I would change that. I think although family life or like growing up was sometimes difficult, it was still good. Like we still had a good family life, we're still good close relationships with like my family, my siblings. So there isn't much that I'd want to change from that. And it's not necessarily changing my experiences, it's maybe changing the experiences of other people and other experiences that people had in my family, but not necessarily mine. Mine was good.
No, I definitely hear that. And what I want to talk about now, because you kind of touched on it a little bit, is kind of twin without twin, just trying to understand. I saw you put a post, I think it's about 3 weeks ago, which kind of said 21 years. What pushed you to start that page? I'm guessing it was the loss of your sister, but how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, like definitely the loss of my sister. So I am or was an identical twin. And my sister died when we were 9 years old. And I didn't start that page straight away, of course, because social media weren't even around then. But I think I started actually a Facebook page first, and then I created an Instagram page later. And really, I wanted to kind of create it because I think losing a twin is different from losing a sibling. And I say that even though I've never had the experience of losing a sibling, I've only ever had the experience of losing a twin. So I don't necessarily know that it is different, but I feel that it is different from what I've read, from what I've seen, from how I felt. I feel like it is different from losing a sibling, especially when you're like identical, because like you're literally one embryo, one egg kind of thing, and you split into two people. So all I've ever known growing and developing is somebody else. Like I've never been a single person. So when you lose someone, especially when you had like 9 years of life together, that is literally your mirror image. That's really difficult, and I think it's different from losing a sibling. So I wanted to just kind of create a page that was specifically for other twinless twins who have also experienced that loss, and like a page for us to kind of connect, a page for us to share. What I was doing, which I've kind of dropped off of doing, and I would like to start up again, is like sharing other people's twinless twin experiences. So they would like share a story about their twin and what they meant to them, kind of thing. And it's just a nice way to connect, really. It's like a support network. Because there is more twinless twins out there than you would think. So it's just about connecting. And there's definitely, it's big in America, actually. They've got quite a good twinless twin support network. Not so much in the UK, but I guess that was kind of my goal with starting it, thinking let's get something started here in the UK.
So I'm guessing with doing that and kind of starting a page of such where it's not especially as big in the country that you reside in, it's you kind of not starting from scratch, but you kind of in the building phase of trying to get that more kind of more awareness and those types of things, especially in the UK, I'm guessing.
Yeah, definitely in the building stage. And I feel like it kind of differs in importance to me. Like I think when I first started it, I was like, yeah, I really want to run with this and kind of get it done. But then kind of life happens and other things become more important. So I don't really think I've been able to give it the time and the dedication that I would like, or like what I even ideally originally planned for. But it is something that I definitely want to do, and in the future would like to grow a little bit more. But I just think with my current plate, everything that's on my plate, it's something that isn't as important, although it's still something that I post on every so often and share a few things every so often, so that it's not kind of just forgotten about.
No, I definitely hear that. One of the things that I wanted to ask as well is, what effect did losing your twin have on you growing up?
I think it was really hard, I think, losing a twin. Because kind of like going back to what I mentioned earlier, it's like losing yourself. And I think having a twin is like an instant friend. Like you've always got someone there. So like, and we did like everything together. Like my mum dressed us like we always were in the same clothes and everything. So we were literally like the twins.
Yeah.
And then like even at school, we were in the same classes, we had the same friends. And I know like even when we moved areas and we moved schools, the school policy was normally to like separate twins, like to put them in separate classes so that they could like grow into themselves, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But when we started, we was like,
That can't run.
So we were put into the same class, although there was like another pair of twins who were in separate classes, and like that was just like the norm. And I think the norm for a lot of schools, they try to do that actually. So yeah, we were just like always together. We were always quite close, like an instant friend, someone that's already always there. So to lose that person, and how sudden as it was, quite suddenly, it was really, 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 really tough. But what I think made it harder was that I didn't really like understand what was like going on for me. I don't feel like mental health or like grief or like depression or anything like that was something that we really talked about in the Black community, especially back in like early thousands, way early thousands. So I just feel like it was something that was kind of like sugared through kind of thing. Like going back to school was really, really hard. I was off school for months, and then when I did go back to school, I couldn't necessarily always like finish the school day. Like sometimes my mum or my dad would have to pick me up during the school because I was too upset to stay for the day. So it was hard, man. But then I think as the years went by, I kind of grew into being me, Chanelle by herself. And I think like secondary school and like college and all of that, that was fine and that was better. But like finishing up primary school was quite tough, man. It was hard. But I think it also shaped me now and why I'm so interested in like psychology in this field as well, like my experiences. I definitely want to like support people who have been through difficult times like that. Like it's hard, and I think the more that you can talk about it and have therapeutic support is the better. So it's definitely something that's quite important and I'm quite passionate about.
And going off the back of that, what kind of advice and encouragement would you give to someone who essentially may not be in a similar boat of losing a twin, but may have lost a sibling or someone quite close? What kind of advice would you give to them?
I think having a bereavement, losing a loved one is hard, whether that's a sibling, a parent, and a partner. It's always, always, always going to be hard. And I think just allow yourself to experience your emotions. I think sometimes, especially as a society, we kind of have this idea that we just need to kind of get on and move on and be strong and carry on living. But you're allowed to feel your emotions. You're allowed to feel upset, you're allowed to feel sad, you're allowed to feel angry, you're allowed to feel shocked, whatever that emotion might be. And trying to act like you're not experiencing them is just kind of going to prolong the healing stage kind of thing. So I would say anyone who's experiencing grief right now, I would say feel your emotions. You're allowed to feel them. There's nothing wrong with them. And think about things that are going to be helpful for you and that may be different for different people. Some people may really value talking to a friend or talking to a loved one about how they're feeling or the loss of that person that they've experienced. But some people might not want to talk to anyone at all. And that's also okay as well. But I would say try to process your feelings in some way. So if you're not talking to someone about it, maybe write about it. If you're artistic, you could use your art to kind of go through it. Whatever your kind of interest is, whatever you find helpful, just find that method or that way of processing your feelings, but feel your feelings, because there's nothing wrong with them. And if you feel like you're struggling after some time has passed and you kind of feel stuck, because like grief is like a cycle almost, we go through different if you're feeling like stuck in a cycle or stuck in a stage and you feel like, you know what, I'd really like to move past this stage now. I don't want to forget about this person, but I want to move past this stage. Consider therapy, considering getting support, consider talking to someone. In Birmingham, the most recognised and used service is Cruise. So Cruise is a really good bereavement service. But there's also other therapists and counsellors like myself who support and work and stuff like that as well. So speak to your GP if you're really struggling. But yeah, feel your feelings and process your feelings.
You know what, that's amazing advice, because especially within our kind of community, I think it's becoming a bit more prevalent now, but one of the things we do suffer with is just kind of getting on. So someone might pass and it's just like, okay, I've got to go work the next day, or let me try and do as much as I can to move to run away from the feelings in a certain kind of aspect. And because we're taught, especially as Black people, to work,
yeah,
we throw ourselves into that because we feel like that's going to take the pain or the feelings that we've got away. So it's great that you've given that advice in terms of feeling your feelings.
Just to kind of add to that as well, because in our culture, well, especially in Caribbean culture, we have this thing called 9 nights.
Yeah.
So like after we lose a loved one, like people come around, friends and family come around, and like you're kind of there every day.
Yeah.
Like 9 nights maybe, but sometimes it's longer than that. In my case, Lisa went after we lost our sister. People were around for weeks. It was like a very long time. But I think even that it's like an avoidance almost, because you're so busy with friends and family being around, and that may feel like a good time. Like I can remember it was so strange for me because all my cousins were around, like we were having fun. It was a good time. Like
I say it's Christmas or something. It don't even make sense.
Then suddenly like the funeral happens and then people stop coming around. And then I think that's when you're really left with like your emotion or like the weight of actually, okay, this person is gone now. So I think, definitely going back to feeling your feelings and processing your feelings, even during those 9 nights, or don't feel pressure to even have those. Like if you don't want to, you don't have to. I think in our culture, it's just like, okay, we're coming around and then expect you to serve food and
and you got to play host. You got to make sure you got drink. You got slur in the back, and if you ain't got the slur, you got to make sure you got something stronger for the other people who want to come to the house. Yeah, it's as I said, it feels like a part of avoidance. Rushing into work, hosting these 9 nights, kind of just trying to keep ourselves busy from actually being in that state of feeling the grief essentially. And then what happens, as you said, you have the funeral, and then people just drop off, not out of no kind of thing of their own. It's just a case of that's just the naturally how it goes. The funeral happens and people just deal with it how they deal with it. And wow, you can speak to more to this because you're the professional. It feels like we need to kind of have more of not of a plan. I'm searching for the right words. It's not a plan, but in terms of like making sure we manage through that time properly.
Mm,
Instead of just going from we're up here with host, funeral, get stuff done, buy the casket,
yeah.
make sure we've got the grave, to then go into okay, I'm alone by myself. Now I have to deal with these feelings. I don't feel like I can talk to anyone or X, Y, and Z. That kind of feels like that's the transition for a lot of us.
Yeah. I definitely say as well for like the friends and family of that person who is experiencing bereavement, just to be mindful that actually that's probably when like it really kicks in. So like
Mm,
after the person who they've lost has been buried, maybe that's when you really want to be checking in a little bit more and like seeing how that person is and doing more things for that person, even if it is like, I don't know, bringing a meal or making sure that person's like got up and showered that day. Really, that's when you think you want to be like more of a support to that person, because that's when it does suddenly just drop off. And like you said, it's not free because any malicious intent or anything. It's just
mm,
like that's the natural process of what happens. So yeah, for the friends and family of the person who's experienced bereavement, maybe think about being more of a support then. And I think for the person who has actually experienced the bereavement, also just be mindful that that could be a really difficult time as well. But like I said, it's okay as well. It's okay if that's the time when you are sad and it's really more difficult, because that's the nature of grief. It is tough, and you will experience those emotions, and it's not necessarily something that we can escape from or something that
mm,
we should try and escape from. Just feel them and feel your feelings.
definitely. So, what starts you on this kind of studying mental health? What starts you on this journey?
It was partly the loss of my sister. Like that was like a really difficult and traumatic time, and I think it definitely ignited a passion for me
Yeah,
to like work with people who experience similar loss and similar pain and difficulties. But I think it's also just like a lot of things. Like, do you know, just growing up and you just think that's weird,
yeah,
that's strange. Like why are we like just seeing? I think it's kind of part of like my personality as well. I'm being quite curious and interested. Like why are you doing that? Like I'm just curious as to why people respond in certain ways or certain behaviors or even certain
mm,
family dynamics and things that we just kind of sometimes accept as normal, or like we brush underneath the carpet, we
hmm,
don't really address. Like sometimes we say like very casually, oh, you all have that crazy uncle, you all have
yeah,
that crazy aunt. I'm like, what, don't we want to like support that person? Shouldn't that person maybe
yeah,
be accessing services, or
mm,
and it's like, it's just like, I think just like in our culture, and I say culture in Caribbean culture, it's not really something that mental health or mental wellness wasn't really something that was spoke about a whole lot. And I think
mm,
it was really interesting for me because it's something that we should be speaking about, because it's something that people are experiencing.
hmm.
So yeah, that was also part of it as well, wanting to kind of really help people who um, didn't have like an outlet, people who didn't feel like we could talk maybe because of cultural norms. And I also say that from a Christian perspective as well,
Yeah,
because I feel like in the church we don't necessarily, well, I think now in the 21st century, in 2021, 2020, we are much better in the church to talk about mental health and mental illness. But I don't think traditionally it was something that was really dealt with or managed very well. So I think all of that, all of my experiences made me think, yeah, this is something that I want to do. This is something that I want to pursue,
mm.
um, so that I can help people in need and from those communities as well.
And that's a good transition into terms of you talked about kind of Caribbean culture, talked about kind of church culture. Now add those two things together, and you've got Caribbean church culture, and it's just like okay, so many things, especially when you're younger, when you've grown up or you've been young in church, you see so many things where you're just like that doesn't seem right, or that
Mm,
person's not okay. But obviously when you're young, you kind of just like, oh, someone's telling me that it's this, or they're just like, oh, that's that person. You just leave them in the corner to do what they're doing
mm,
and let the stewards manage or whatever it is. And
yeah.
there was no kind of, not that there was no, but there was limited in terms of resource and kind of understanding of what that person's actually gone through or going through at the time. Well, we kind of spoke about it a little bit, but why do you think we kind of, from a Caribbean Christian church culture perspective, we kind of lack that kind of understanding?
I don't know. I feel like there's a variety of things, but I think it's always been like God is our strength, God is our source, God is able to do everything. And I absolutely, wholeheartedly believe that. But I also think that God uses things or people to help us in areas that we need the support in. And I think traditionally it's always been like, okay, let's pray about it, let's get deliverance, let's do X, Y, Z. Think, relying on God, but not also thinking about, okay, what tools or what resources can I use with God? And I think about it, I always liken this to like physical health, and like when we're physically unwell, and maybe we need to go and get some surgery, like we don't just pray about it, we also get the surgery. So we're praying for the surgery to go well, but we're also going to allow the surgeon to do his job and operate on whatever needs operating. And I think that's the same, it should be the same with mental health, but it hasn't necessarily been the same. With mental health, it's been like, okay, this person is, I don't know, depressed, let's pray for them. And that's great. And please do continue to pray for them. But maybe they also need to speak to someone as well. And maybe that's going to help as well. So I just think it's maybe just the way that we've viewed, viewed like mental health itself. And like, I think teaching's always been like, God can do everything and is a miracle worker. And he is. I still like he is. But I just feel like I said, he can use other sources to help him perform that miracle in someone's life.
And I think what's key, what you said, is it's great that we have the faith, but there's works that need to go alongside that. It says it in the Bible: faith without works is dead. And with us, sometimes you'll hear someone testify and say, talk about this, and that, and you're just like, you know what could easily help you out is this plus prayer. But we sometimes we've been for years kind of focuses on the prayer. If we don't pray and the prayer don't work, nothing else is gonna fix it.
Or you need to pray harder. You need to fast. You need to do more.
Fast. You ain't been fasting. How long was you fasting? 4 days? Try 7. Because there's some misconnection, and that's what some people's Christianities can take a hard hitter, because they feel like if I'm not praying enough, if I'm not praying hard enough, if I'm not doing enough, whereas there's some physical things that we should be doing that they feel like, oh, maybe I'm not enough of a Christian. And as you're saying, it's not, the prayer is great, and that's essentially where we should start, but the works have to come with that as well.
And I think like when we lost my sister, I think being from like a Christian background, I say Christian background, my mom's Christian, my dad's actually a Rasta. Being from a Christian background, like it was like God, and it's a powerful part of my mom's testimony, that she never needed to go into antidepressants, or she never needed to seek counselling or therapy, because God was a healer and God was a source. And that's amazing, but I don't think it's necessarily the same for everyone. And I think sometimes we make it sound like we shouldn't have to access those things, but God can get you through difficult times with the source of, I don't know, medication as well, sometimes if you need it, or with therapy. But I think that's been a big part of people's testimony. It was God that saw me through this. But like you said, you might have had an easier journey if you also sought this as well. But God is able to.
Definitely. What's been your biggest surprise in terms of during your kind of studying and working within mental health? What was the biggest surprise to you?
I think maybe there's been lots of surprises. One, just like knowing statistics, like 1 in 4 1 in every 4th person will experience like some sort of common mental illness during their lifetime. And I think just knowing that how common that is, like if you think about every 4th person,
1 in 4.
Every 4th person that you see would experience some sort of common mental health problem. So that may just be anxiety, maybe depression, it could be something more severe. So I think knowing like how common mental illnesses can be sometimes, how taboo the subject is at the same time. So I think like the contrast between that is just crazy. Also, I think just finding out more about the experiences of Black people in mental health services and the institutionalization of them. Sometimes like Black men have been more likely to be sectioned compared to our white counterparts. So I think just finding out about the statistics and the treatment of Black people historically in mental health services, and also just the statistics of how common mental illnesses actually is in culture or in life, but how taboo the subject can sometimes still feel at the same time.
You know what? When as I listen to you speak, especially when you're kind of talking about your experiences and about mental health, in my head, I'm just like, how do you like manage? Because it's all these different like mental health disorders. Obviously, you specialize in or have a extreme expertise in anxiety, but how do you kind of manage all these things, like these kind of situations and issues and problems that other people have in your daily life? Like, how do you manage?
I would say that's probably like split into three different things.
Okay.
Faith.
Yeah.
So like my own relationship with God, I think is something that is really key to me being able to do this work quite, I say, well. And also because like I think I said earlier that I'm really passionate about like really fulfilling like my purpose. And I really do feel like it's part of like my purpose to really like support people in experiencing mental illnesses and just to be like that person that people can talk to. And so I feel like because I'm doing what I'm meant to do, like I'm able to do it with maybe a sense of resilience that would be different if I wasn't maybe in my calling, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think my faith is a big part of that. And secondly, I would say like professional kind of support, like supervision is a major thing that we have to do and something that we have to maintain to like maintain accreditation. It's just important for our client work and for ourselves. So at the moment, actually, as a trainee clinical psychologist, I have weekly supervision for like an hour and a half. So every week I'm talking to a more senior staff member about my clients, about me, you know, just kind of having that time to talk. It's not very good, but it is like, it's our time to like be supervised and learn and kind of decompress almost. That stuff that's quite difficult. And then like just having like extra training sessions and learning about certain topics which you may be finding difficult as well is another part that I think really helps to manage stuff like that. And then personally, I would say that therapy, I advocate for therapy and I also have therapy myself. So that's a big part that's helpful. But also like self-care. I'm always talking about self-care on Instagram if you follow me. So just taking time for like self-care, like doing things that are important to me and that make me feel good, make me feel happy, is so important. And sometimes that is just like a hot bubble bath. Sometimes that is a face mask. Sometimes that is, you know, talking to someone who I love and I trust. Sometimes that's just going out and having fun, like having a life outside of kind of mental health and mental illnesses is a major part. And for me, I'm quite disciplined. And I've said this before, like once 5 o'clock rolls around for my job, my 9 to 5, done. I'm done. Like done. Like I'm not really one to work late or to do extra outside of my traditional 9 to 5 hours. Of course, sometimes the circumstances where I can't avoid it and I have to, and that's fine, and that's okay. But where I can, I'm very disciplined with like my time that I dedicate to this and having time that is not related to work as well. But I say where I can because I also do private work after 9 to 5. So sometimes like my evenings and my weekends might be doing mental health work kind of stuff. But just be disciplined. Having a life outside of mental health and mental illnesses is a major part for me. So I think that's also what helps me to do this work and to stay well whilst doing this work as well.
So what does kind of, when you look back on your life and you say, I'm glad I achieved that within the mental health sector, what does that look like? What's your overall goal, essentially?
My overall goal, I guess, will be accomplished in a couple of years, maybe, and that's to get the doctor title, Dr. Shan. So once I've done that, that's like the highest level of studying that I need to do. I mean, I could get other doctorates if I want to, but I ain't trying to do all of that. No, definitely not trying to do all of that. This is my 4th time at university now, so I am
4th.
done. once this is done, I am done. And so I think that would be probably like the biggest accomplishment once I've done that. But I think I'm quite proud of where I am already, like being an accredited psychotherapist, being able to have like private practice as well as work for, now it's NHS, but previously it's been like different organizations like universities and stuff like that. And being someone who is actually called upon to talk about mental health, like you said, I've spoken at JUK a few times and different organizations. So actually being that person that people think, yeah, I want to get Chanelle in to talk about mental health or to kind of share with us about how we can manage our mental well-being. I think that's one of my biggest accomplishments. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm passionate about. So the fact that I can do it is amazing.
And you know what it is? I've watched more than enough videos and interviews that you've done, and I'm just like, you know what you're talking about. And sometimes, not in regards to your sector, but sometimes people may have a title or may have a what they've studied, but it don't. When you watch them speak about it, it doesn't come across that they fully understand or fully know what they're speaking about.
Yeah.
But when I watch you in particular, I'm like, I feel like I'm learning. I feel like I'm learning if I'm being honest.
That's the goal.
Yeah. So do you see yourself in the future kind of doing kind of not teachings, more so because we talked about kind of Caribbean church culture. Do you see yourself kind of going into churches and talking about mental health and those types of things and teaching on mental health, or is that not something that you kind of see for yourself at the moment?
I do think it is going to be a massive part of what I do in the future. I think recently I've been like really thinking about what I'm passionate about and who I'm passionate about. And I think I'm really passionate about people. I say for the people, and I keep doing this, and I don't just mean that
for the people.
I don't just mean like
just black people. Yeah.
But although I'm a black person, I'm very passionate about black mental health. But I just mean for like people, like I came from an inner city community, like those underprivileged people, those people who come from working class backgrounds, those people who are sometimes ignored and not seen as a part of society or helpful or contributing member to society. I'm really like passionate about supporting those, and as a Christian, my faith comes into that a lot. So I also want to be raising awareness about the importance of talking about mental health and addressing mental illnesses in the church, and really trying to change our views on that and educating a lot of people about that as well. So I definitely see it as part of my future. I feel like it's something that I'm slowly getting more and more involved in. So I think it will be a big part in my future as I progress and develop. So yeah, I can only see it getting bigger from now.
So can I, and that's why I'm looking forward to kind of where your journey that you've done so incredibly so far, but where it's going to continue to take you from here, which is just going to be amazing to look from the outside and see what you do. Essentially, one of the things I want to kind of ask you though is, in your life, has there ever been a time where you've kind of felt quite overwhelmed? Maybe not from like a career perspective, but just in general, have you felt overwhelmed, and kind of how did you kind of get over that? And what did you do to kind of get to that space?
Well, I would say, I think the easy answer to that would be like when I lost my sister. But I think how I got over that isn't necessarily a method that is like teachable. Like it wasn't necessarily, and I say that because I didn't have like any counselling or anything. It was just like a process and something that I just got through over a period of time. There wasn't anything really I did to kind of help me to get through that stage. So outside of that, I think, we've had in our family, there's been like further losses. Like last year we lost my granddad, like I've lost like aunties, and because it's like there's been a lot of loss. I won't say a lot, but there's been a fair bit of loss in my life. So I think during those times, that's always really difficult. But it kind of, what helps me to get through that is what I was talking about earlier in terms of like self-care and really being attuned to myself kind of thing. So like I know when I'm getting stressed. I kind of like, I feel like I'm aware of like when I'm more stressed.
Yeah.
Or I'm aware of when like my mood might be dipping. I know what I'm like when I'm good and things are going well for me, and I know what I'm when things aren't necessarily going so well for me. And I think what helps me to do that is journaling. I journal a lot, so I can like see how, what I'm writing about and how I'm writing it. If that changes and I'm like, oh, Shan, I need to do something there. So I think kind of having a good sense of awareness really helps me to get through difficult times. And there has been difficult times. I think life can be difficult for everyone, and everyone's difficulty may be different. Like what I may struggle with might be completely different to someone else's. I think something that we've all struggled with right now is this whole pandemic and this whole lockdown. I think this third lockdown has been more difficult than it was the first lockdown for me anyway. So that's been quite difficult. And I think for me, I've definitely had to make sure I had a good routine and a good structure. Because before I was like motivated, it was sunny, it was hot, I was in my garden, I was going for walks, I was doing all of those things that we could do. But now you get up, it's dark, it's cold, it's raining, there's been lots of snow recently, and it's easy to. So I think having a structure and thinking, you know what, get up, get showered, get dressed, have like some routine to your day, exercise, eat well, do all of those things, Shan, because it's going to help you to get through this difficult pandemic. So yeah, I think knowing yourself, so having self-awareness, and then kind of recognizing when things are changing for yourself helps me as well, and then doing something about it. So sometimes that might be a day watching Netflix in my bed, and that might just be what I need. Sometimes it might just be a 3-hour conversation on the phone with my cousin or something like that. So yeah, it just depends what is needed at that point.
You talked about it a little bit, but what advice would you give to people who are kind of experiencing lockdown and a bit anxious, especially kind of going into this new normal, like not just based on lockdown, but like what the world outside looks like for them? What kind of advice would you give to them?
I think it's really tough. It is really, really, really hard right now. And I think the first thing that I'd want to say is just normalizing how you feel. I think anyone who says, oh, I've been fine and lockdown hasn't affected me, maybe telling a few white lies. I don't think anyone can say they've been completely fine during this time, because it has been tough.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like the changes in routine, or the fact that you're working from home a lot, or even for the people who still have to go out every day, maybe they're worried about, actually contracting COVID. There's different worries, different uncertainties that people are experiencing. So I think normalizing how you're feeling. If you're feeling a bit stressed or anxious or overwhelmed or down about this pandemic, that's normal. Like you're experiencing normal human emotions right now, so that's okay. But I think find out what is going to be helpful for you and what you need. Like for me, having a good structure and routine to the week is good, and trying to do that anyway. So I always say follow the plan and not your mood, because sometimes our mood will say, I can't be bothered, I want to stay in bed, forget everything.
Facts.
I'm not going to do anything today. And if listen to our mood all of the time, like how many times would be like just put stuff off, or not get stuff done, or like get into situations which aren't necessarily helpful for us if you listen to our feelings all the time. So I always say follow the plan, create a plan for like your day or your week, and have things to kind of break up your week as well. Like especially if you're working from home a lot, like in your 9 to 5 downstairs in the dining room, which is like where I am right now, have something that's going to be different, like that breaks up that routine. If that's going out and going for a walk, or doing an exercise class, or I don't know, just having games night with friends, just doing something that kind of changes your routine, so it doesn't feel like it's more of the same every single day, which it does feel a lot like that at the moment. Having some changes to your routine, and then talking. There's so much support out there right now for people who need it, and that's through the NHS. If you need to, you can just call your GP. You can call the local IAP services, which is access to psychological therapy services, and you can actually talk to someone. We can get psychological support right now. If you don't want to do it for your NHS, there's lots of people you can contact privately to access therapy and support as well. So don't underestimate the power of talking, or just accessing support if you need it, and don't be afraid to do so, because the government have actually put in a fair bit of funding into like mental health services at the moment because of this. So there's support out there, get it, and use it if you need it.
That's great. That's great. I'm not even going to add nothing on top of that. My last question to you is, what advice would you give to yourself with where you're at in life now?
Keep going. Keep going. I think I'm human. I have normal emotions. Sometimes I'm not motivated. Sometimes I am just tired. Sometimes I just think, oh, it's too hard. So I would say keep going. Keep going, because the rewards are always, I never regret doing something, but I do regret when I don't do something. So keep going even when you feel like it's too hard, because the benefits are going to be worth it. It's going to be worthwhile. And take care of yourself. So keep going, but take care of yourself while you do that. So I don't want to burn out or do too much or take on too much. So whilst I am keeping going, I am also being mindful of, actually, I'll keep going, but I'm just going to take a break right here, and then I'll keep going. Take another break, and then I'll keep going. So yeah.
That's great. Keep going.
Yeah.
Remember that. Chanelle Dennis, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for all the advice that you've given. And thank you guys who have been watching for tuning in. This has been Conversation with Haych with the superb, the amazing, soon-to-be Dr. Chanelle Dennis.
Thank you for having me.
Catch you guys very soon.